Alrighty, guys. Welcome to welcome to the AI Financial Autopilot panel. The first real agentic applications. George Zhang of Near AI, Nishkam of Abound. Quick introductions, guys. Welcome to the panel.
Good to be here. I'm George, Chief Product Officer for Near and also GM for Near AI.
Hey, I'm Nishkam. It's great to be here too. I'm the founder CEO for Abound. We're a money remittance app for Indian expats in the US to send, spend, save, invest, and borrow seamlessly across borders.
Awesome, and I know that there's some news to cover today and some partnership. We also have a cool a demo video for you all. Let's get into just kind of laying the groundwork for the first real agentic applications. Kind of what can we expect in this application landscape as it's evolved so far? Looking ahead, what are some of these exemplary first real applications?
Sure, yeah, and I'll just speak to that, and I'll probably give you guys a little bit of a background for Abound just to put into context. So, we do money remittances for Indian expats from the US to India, and just for some context, Indian expats are like a virtual G20 economy unto themselves. There's close to like 33 million Indian expats around the world. It's an audience which is the population of Australia. They collectively earn 2.5 trillion. As an economy, they collectively remit about $120 billion into India every year. So it is by far the largest movement of consumer payments just around the world. And as Abound, we actually want to make it easy for money remittances into India. We ultimately believe that every dollar that's being sent home is being used for something. It's being used for family maintenance, it's being used for education, and so far, all the existing incumbents within the ecosystem, effectively, they're trying to cater to every demographic, which they can, whether it's Indians and Hispanics and Asians, what have you. And in doing that, they've lost the ability to go really deep and super serve those users. So as somebody who's an Indian expat, myself in the US, I should be able to invest in a mutual fund in India with one click, but it's really hard for me to do so. And oftentimes, the friction within that experience sits in the last mile. And so for me as an expat, when I send money to India, I have to stay up at 12 midnight and speak to like a banker in India when I have to do anything, whether it is moving money to a mutual fund or it is to do any other financial activity or even beyond. And so for us, agents solve a very real problem. And instead of me staying up till midnight, can my agent handle that for me? And so what you'll see in the demo is just one snippet, and it's our jumping off point for now doing agents. So if you want to play it, and I can just give a voiceover. This is the homepage of Abound, and what you'll see playing screen, and I'll just step aside for a sec, is the homepage of Abound. And if you want to keep playing, and so within the homepage of Abound, what we're letting the user do now is access their agent, and this is going to go live in beta as of this month. And we honestly think this should be the largest consumer application for an Ironclaw out there, about 500,000 Ironclaws, which should go live between now and the rest of the year. And what you're seeing over here is just some real world applications of what you can do with an agent. It'll help you maximize the exchange rate, which is really impactful for our users. It'll let you manage a few use cases, and there's an actual video like we recorded this morning. You say hi, and then as you go in, the agent will tell you what you're looking to do. You'll say that you're trying to send money to India, and we'll say like I want to send a certain amount back home. And once you do that, what's happening behind the scenes, and this is an actual demo with the actual Ironclaw behind the scenes, is that it's processing that request, and then it'll ask you a bunch of questions. Who do you want to send it to? Who's the recipient? We also take some consent from the user as we do it. So in this case, I want to send it to Prashant, who has engineering for us. And once the user selects his name, or even to me, although I feel like I'm not as handsome as the image on screen, but once you click on that name, it'll start to process all the information. And this is the piece which happens behind the scenes, but is really critical. Anytime you send money to somebody in India, you have their KYC, you have their passport, you have like their bank account on file. And this is where the magic of Ironclaw really happens, is that you're taking really rich PII, right? This is your passport, your driver's license, your social security number. And this is being cryptographically sharded. So the LLM or the the language model will never ever see the actual private keys, and it'll be cryptographically sharded out there. And then as you do that, you're seeing really rich PII get processed. You're asking the user for what is this going to be used for. That's mandated from a compliance standpoint. And in this case, it'll be used for family maintenance, for example. So we'll click on that. And here's the other interesting thing, is it'll show you an exchange rate predicting mechanism that's being run off of an agent. Now, typical behavior is that a user will end up opening 6 different apps every day. They'll say, what's the best exchange rate on service A, service B, service C, and oftentimes this happens near the day of a paycheck. So from the 10th of the month till the 16th, 17th of the month, the user will be opening 6 different apps practically every day just to check the exchange rate. And we take that friction out of the whole thing. We'll say, based on on the exchange rate trend, and this is live as of today, it's telling you that this is the best exchange that you could possibly get. And once you take that, then we take consent from the user, and after that, the remittance is triggered. So we could probably stop the demo now, but this is effectively what's going to go live this month. And I feel like as mundane as this might look like, which is send money to India at a high exchange rate, there's a lot of magical things that are happening behind the scenes, right? Like you're taking their KYC, their passport, their driver's license, you're saving the friction of a user having to open multiple apps every single day for like a few consecutive days. And all of that is being abstracted away with an agent from Ironclaw that we're super excited to work with.
I just want to add a few things to that, to what Nishkam said. So I didn't realize this, but Nishkam's old workflow used to be to do these set of actions manually at midnight, right? And at Near AI, we think that there's maybe 3 main components, 3 legs of the stool of having real transactions happen using AI agents. One is secure AI. So what you saw with Ironclaw, and we'll have some exciting announcements soon with real security benchmarks showing that Ironclaw is the most secure agent framework out there. Second is private AI. So being able to use confidential inference happening within trusted execution environments. So OpenAI, Anthropic, nor any other companies can see actually your financial data through their agents. It's actually in a completely encrypted secure enclave where no one, including Near, is able to see the information going in and out. And third, really good transaction data. So you saw how this ends up being a transaction happening over Rails going to India. This is also part of our long-term vision of using Near Intents to be able to have the transaction layer for AI, real AI economic value. We think if you have those 3, secure AI, private AI, and then transaction layer, you can create some magical experiences.
Excellent. Thank you.
So, kind of expand upon what kind of product breakthroughs or kind of UX improvements materially in this specific example are derived from this experience. You talked about how it's quite a tedious endeavor to do a remittance from India for expats. Is this streamlining? Like, are we saving days, hours? Like, what is the kind of convenience and the kind of breakthrough here of efficiency? Like, what's the scale that we're talking?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll say this. I think the India corridor is the largest money remittance corridor on the planet. Yep. It is the largest cross-border payments corridor on the planet, and it is by far larger, than a whole bunch of others. Unfortunately, India is literally half a world away, quite literally. So you're always staying up at stupid hours, just to do basic things. And here, what you saw on screen is just a precursor of what we think this can be. For now, what this is saving is just, the friction of having to open multiple apps every single day just to look at exchange rates. I think what this also takes away is the emotional anxiety which you have, right? Because oftentimes the money that you're sending back home is being used to support family out the other end. And getting like a marginally better exchange rate might seem mundane, but for somebody receiving the money, it is meaningful as a difference. So I think you're taking away that stress, but more importantly, what you're also now doing is bringing peace of mind and starting to put almost like an autopilot behind what you're trying to do, right? And ultimately, where we see the most friction is on that last mile in India, right? Where once the money gets to a bank account in India, what do you do then, right? And the idea that you're having to stay up at midnight, talk to a banker, talk to somebody else, all of that gets abstracted away, and it's an agent. And for us, building trust around it means that you open up a lot of other use cases, right? Which is, go pay electricity bills or go pay this, go do that. And it really is a godsend. I'll share my own personal example of what I did, in the last 1 month. I had to file my taxes in the US. I had to go get like my bank balances in India. And typically that would have meant staying up again at midnight, talking to a banker saying, hey, I cannot log into the website because I generally cannot. And then having him email me a statement at the end of the month. That would have been about a day of coordination back and forth over email, and then I get my bank statement, and then finally I get a bank balance I could go put on my tax return here. And what I actually did is that I went to like my OpenClaw, IronClaw, and then asked like, what was my bank statement in India? You've got access to my email. It instantly pulled up my bank balance. It just asked me for an OTP credential to like log in. And once I did that, within, I would say less than a minute, it gave me a bank balance, like my bank balance at the end of the year. And again, it sounds super mundane, but it's really hard to do. And so I feel like that's essentially where we see this going, is that anything cross-border, we can automate away with an agent. Our vision is to eventually add an eSIM with every instance of an IronClaw. And so then it can do tasks for you remotely. It can call, it can like receive these OTPs, the things that I had to do manually. It can even abstract that away.
Yeah, George, one of the things that I was talking about earlier as it pertains to this was this kind of prescriptive improvement of the way that some of these models are reacting. Specifically, that was the breakthrough with OpenClaw. IronClaw was this kind of more prescriptive, much less prompting required, and much more of like a action-oriented from a like stimulating action from its own kind of intelligence rather than purely having to give that prompt or command. When it comes to highly sensitive information like finances, to what scale do you think the privacy features of IronClaw really make it the most compelling option for sensitive use cases? How do you think about this prescriptive prompting with sensitive use cases? You want all the benefits of these highly sophisticated models and technologies with very sensitive data. How do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The one way to think about this is the LLM models are the brains, and then the agent frameworks or harnesses are the bodies, right? The LLM can think, but the agent harness, the agent framework has to move, has to act. And those two need to actually be built securely and privately in different ways. So the way we've approached it is IronClaw ends up being very secure as an agent framework because it does things like it secures your passwords. It doesn't sort of reveal that to LLMs. It's built in Rust versus TypeScript. It has sandboxes for different processes and a overall Docker sandbox for more advanced processes. And it uses things like prompt injection protection at the architectural levels. There's a lot of like security things that have been implemented to make it a lot safer. And you'll see this in security sort of benchmarks in the future. Then there's the privacy piece you mentioned. But the privacy piece ends up being different from the security piece. So the way that we handle privacy is we do confidential inference within trusted execution environments. That's just like a complicated way of saying we're able to run open source AI models in secure enclaves where no one can see the questions that are asked and the responses that are returned, including you, right? So now you have an agent framework that's much more difficult to compromise from a security perspective. You have a brain that is able to think privately and doesn't leak your information to OpenAI or Anthropic or any other centralized AI company. We think both are critical because if you're doing financial transactions, obviously you don't want a security compromise. And if you're using private keys or credit card information or anything that's sensitive, you don't want to leak that information to another company.
And when it comes to actually the sophistication of the model and the quality and the intelligence, are you still able to maintain all of those properties as the intelligence scales? For a use case like this, these users are going to want to be, consistently feeling like their financial agent is getting better with them, helping them earn more money, helping them save more money, helping them be, as you evolve in the feature set, right? You kind of build this relationship. They want to know that this thing's getting smarter and smarter. Are you able to still give them that property while maintaining the privacy and security, as you mentioned?
Absolutely. What you see here now are open source models getting better and better. And kind of what I think will happen over time is the delta between closed and open source model will shrink more and more. you can't prevent smart people from working on other projects, right? So what you naturally see happening in tech is a diffusion, a transference of like knowledge and expertise amongst many different companies, right? Like GOM, Quinn, Kimi, like all of these are great models. And I think what you'll also see is that these open source models are ones that we can run within these secure enclaves. Near AI is also able to anonymize models through like a mixer model for if you really want to use an Anthropic model or an OpenAI model, that's still possible in an anonymized way as well. Right? It's not completely private, but it's much more private than giving them all your information.
When it comes to some of the remittance side and payment side, is there a future that you see of this app specifically becoming a lot more integrated with stablecoins, using near intents, using this kind of agent intents framework that George laid out in his initial response to the demo? How do you think about that kind of speed of adoption?
No, totally agreed. And so I'll say this. We think the future of remittances is on-chain. It's with agents, and we think the future of agents is also on-chain for all the reasons that George mentioned, that it can be more secure, it can be more private, and ultimately you want money to move at the speed of the internet, which it just doesn't right now. And so we're very bullish about where the whole sector is going.
And so you think that there could be a very seamless integration kind of under the hood, operating for like a INR stablecoin or USD stablecoin?
So that's the hope, right? I think there's still like a lot of work that has to happen from like a compliance standpoint. Obviously, we want to be on the right side of that. But we do think that this is absolutely where the ecosystem is headed, and like we'd love to be first with Near as we do that.
As you guys are both thinking about kind of scaling the abilities of agents, in the financial first framework, what are some of the other applications and use cases that you guys find most compelling from a actual demand perspective, like actual solving a problem, not just kind of creating ideas, but where is the real demand on the finance side for agents?
Oh, this is why don't we both tackle this? Because I think we have very different perspectives on this. This is actually a question I've talked to a lot of both crypto and non-crypto companies on, right? On the crypto side, we see people interested in doing things like optimizing for yield, helping to manage their crypto portfolios. We see people interested in using agents for doing things like crypto-specific security, research on different crypto protocols. Those are a lot of like vertical specific, crypto specific use cases. And then all of the usual horizontal functional specific use cases. I want to enhance my engineering team with agents capable of doing smart contract engineering. I want to be able to have agents helping to enhance my operations or my marketing or sales as well.
Yeah, and for us, I'll say this, our mental model is that every dollar being sent back home is being used for something. And oftentimes the existing ecosystem looks at it almost as like a single player problem. There's a sender in the US who's sending money back home to India. And then there's a whole other person out the other end who's actually going to be the beneficiary of it. But they currently have no participation within that ecosystem. At the same time, you've got the sender here in the US who also has got very little agency of what happens once those funds do reach India, right? And again, there's a lot of friction within that whole ecosystem. So with that mental model in mind, we think that using agents, you can make the last mile significantly more seamless. You can bring in the recipient within that. So an example of that is if my brother, hypothetically, in India wants to go buy a laptop, I can either send him $1,000, over a money remittance done in the traditional sense, and then he has to receive that, which has a whole bunch of friction as well. He'll have to negotiate with his Indian bank for receiving those dollars. What exchange rate is he getting? And then ultimately, he will then take those proceeds, go put it on a card or just use his debit card and go to a local store and then purchase. And how wonderful would it be if I could just send him a WhatsApp with a link to an Abound wallet where he can go to the local store and spend on demand with funds that are already in the US? And how wonderful would it be if within that whole interaction, I could just say, my brother needs a laptop this month, right? And like the agent is now looking for the best deal, is now working with my brother, for that, right? And so when you start to look at the world as, how can this remittance experience be somewhat invisible and really enable the recipient to do the things that they really want to do and really make it easy for the sender to do that and make that happen, that's incredibly powerful. And I feel like that's ultimately where we see signal with AI and agents in general.
I think we're about out of time, guys. Let's give it up for your panelists, George and Sean. Thank you, guys.